What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, which throughout the weekend was able to hold itself a little bit. But as we start off the new week, we could clearly see Bitcoin's now at $33,000. Altcoin market taking a complete punishment with it. Lots of fear, lots of panic out there. So we're going to talk about the market. Every morning, my typical routine is I wake up early in the morning, wake up when it's dark, 4:45 in the morning. I go to the gym, work out, come home. My wife goes to the gym, then she comes home, and we sit on the couch and we talk for like 30 minutes before I come in here and I start taking a look at the charts. She's just like, so, hey, how's your day going? How's today going to go? I'm like, well, Bitcoin's at $33,000. Altcoin market's taking a beating with it. She's like, well, these are the days that they need you out there, man. This is the day they need the blockchain backer to have their back. And I guess it's true, right? So we're clearly in capitulative style price action happening here in the market. It's one of those moments in time, like when we're going up really fast, people think the prices will continue going up for forever. When we're going down really fast, people will think that the prices are going to continue going down forever. A lot of confusion out there and what's going on with the market. I mean, just 2 months ago, Bitcoin was $69,000. Now it's $33,000. $100,000 price doesn't sound so realistic anymore. We can see that sentiment has flipped on Bitcoin. But it's during these types of moments where glory is made. I talk a lot about how mathematics and percentages mean so much to me. And in these types of moments, there's really two things that I know how to do. One, either close my eyes and don't look and wait, or two, I bust out my bank account and I go on a shopping spree. Those are the two things I do in these types of situations. So either I close my eyes and don't look and I wait for the prices to move back up, or I start running some mathematics and percentages and say, where's my opportunity at? The general herd behavior is to buy high and sell low. And why is that? They buy high expecting that they're buying into a trend and that price will continue trending to the upside. And then they sell low thinking that they're selling into a trend and that the prices will continue lower. But my argument for Bitcoin has been this. What's playing out? Now, unfortunately, the altcoin market's taking a massive beating with Bitcoin at this exact same time, but this has been my argument for what Bitcoin has been doing. As we know, the Bitcoin market cap slammed into the 4.236 extension, unable to close a weekly candle above it, and got a massive rejection off of that price level. The typical herd behavior was that this time is different, 4-year cycles don't matter anymore. But as we can see, there's a pretty big check mark there for the 4-year cycles, pretty big check mark there for the 4.236 extension. But now what, right? These prices have been falling so hard. Now what's to come? Is Bitcoin just going to continue going straight line down into oblivion? And while you would find it hard to believe, but the reality is a lot of people actually want that now. There's two reasons why people would want that. One, they've sold low and they want to be able to buy lower. And two, if Bitcoin is actually doing what it typically does, in which it has an 84 to 86% correction, while if we just keep going in a straight line down right now, then we just go ahead and we get it over with, right? Then we get to go back into a straight line up of euphoria. But that's not typically how markets behave. Typically, markets are going to tease for quite a while. And I actually think we're much closer to the end of this thing and the end of this move to the downside than we are to it continuing going down much lower, right now at least. I do believe a retracement will come in. We're also seeing all that same style of capitulative things happening over there in the altcoin market. On December 28th, I put out a video titled Top Hunting by Calculating the Altcoin Market Cap and XRP with the Bitcoin price chart and Ethereum. As you know, my belief system has been that the top of Bitcoin and the top of Ethereum have already been put in, that the prices would fall, but that the big shining moment of this market is going to be when a retrace comes in. In this video, we spent a lot of time running calculations of what it would look like for Ethereum to have a monster fall and then go back into its retracement based on the market caps, seeing what the market cap of Ethereum would be in a retrace style situation after a big fall did come, and that the expectation for Bitcoin and for Ethereum to say that, hey, they're going to have these big falls. Big question is about the retracement. I know it's pretty defeating out there to see the altcoin market getting hit so hard. I'm right there with you. My bags are getting punished at the exact same time. But as far as this video goes, that's probably going to be the extent of me being sympathetic to everything falling and it's hurting. because now it's about looking for optimism and it's looking for a reversal to come in. One of the charts we've stared at an exceptional amount of time has been looking at Bitcoin from an inverse perspective. We've been doing this for about a year at this point. A lot of you have heard me say this many times, that it's the thing that got us through May, June, and July to expect a new all-time high for Bitcoin, but that it wouldn't be very much and that prices would reverse on themselves. Oddly enough, I've had a lot of new subscribers join over the course of the last several days, so you have to go back and kind of rewatch history and how we got to this moment. Can't really dive too deep into this without boring 99% of people. But you can see where we are at this point, right? The structure continues to play out. People can want Bitcoin to crash all the way down to $15,000 right now, all they want. But that's not what the structure tells us is next. That's not what it's told us for the last several years. It's not what it's told us for the last several months. It's not what it told us at the all-time high. All of it said in these typical structures, and for all those who are new to this, we are looking at Bitcoin upside down up here. So I will at least do you this much and say, look, this is what you're used to seeing, right? This is where we're at. Here's the May, June, and July, August, September, October, November, and then here you go. But that the structure never says we just go crashing all the way straight back down. It says you set a new all-time high. Look over here on the right. As prices move down on this chart, the prices are actually moving up, just like you see over here, right? Price dips below wave 5, it pulls back up, and then it goes on for one excessive move, and then that's the end of it, right? It's what we had with Bitcoin over here. One push above the all-time high, above wave 5, pulls back, final excess, and then back on up. And of course, since we're inverted, that means down. And as we see with all the examples we typically reference to for this structure, that's what happens, is that we get back up into these price levels. Bitcoin's area right in here would be equivalent to XRP's area right in here. You could see where we are. We've got a big break on out of there, right? And I remember during this time period back in here, right, for when we were studying XRP in here, we're studying Bitcoin in here, this was like El Salvador time, right? This is the time where the market completely tumbled on itself and the price fell back. I'll flip that back upside down so people can remember, right? This is where El Salvador made Bitcoin a currency. And on that exact day, what was it? It was buy Bitcoin day being pushed by the typical suspects usually. Everybody's supposed to buy $30 worth of Bitcoin on that day. What happens? Price pulls back, right? But at that time, we were like, look, hey, you know what? Even this structure right in here for Bitcoin, this is all normal stuff for it to still go on and set a new all-time high. It's what we typically see in this structure before it does it. Well, you can see where we are now, right? We're back above there or below, if you want to look at it in standard form. But I always reference these charts for the first time. For people who are seeing this for the first time, I always do this because it helps eliminate a lot of the biases that we have. When prices are going down, our brains just flip into like a self-defense type of style. It's ingrained in our DNA to protect ourselves. And those mechanisms just don't work here. It's why we get greedy and we buy tops. It's why we get terrified and sell bottoms. And so this is one of the strategies that I use all the time to help eliminate a lot of those biases. When I look at charts and say, how would I do TA on this if it was upside down? If the direction was completely the opposite way, what would I be thinking to myself? And while we can all see where Bitcoin is at this point, and I'll change that color, and it's just like Bitcoin being in here, right? I get it. For people watching this for the very first time, you're probably thinking this is crazy, this is nonsense, but I think there's a reason why people watch this YouTube channel beyond me, my personality. It's pointing these things out. The reality is the vast majority of the market was not able to identify what was going on with Bitcoin, even when it was just as simple as a 4.236 extension on the market cap. It was just that simple. But the absolutely incredibly difficult part of a market is navigating through a bear market. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes into play, figuring out what happens when big fat reversals come in on markets and what do the structures usually look like for distribution and accumulation. And the schematic that we've been running for Bitcoin to lure in retail investors, as CNBC is shilling it, as $5 million price targets have been shilled on YouTube, as rainbow models predict it to 300K, and retail madness with laser eyes and diamond hands all buying the top, it has been in a distribution schematic. The retail investors were all getting dumped on, and it seems to be in an organized manner. And if you know anything about the financial media, they're all telling you not to touch Ethereum, not to touch Bitcoin when Bitcoin was 6K, when Bitcoin was 3K, when Ethereum was $300, when Ethereum was $100. You were told not to touch it. But all these suspects come out and start shilling the heck out of it with Ethereum above $3,000 saying buy, 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 buy. Remember, they told you not to touch it at 100. Don't you dare touch it. It's horrible. It's garbage. Bitcoin, don't touch it. It's for criminals. It's garbage. It's never going to be anything at 3,000, at 6,000. But then telling all of you with segments non-stop to buy 50,000, to buy 60,000, while it's been in a distribution schematic the entire time, completely getting dumped on the retail investors. Of course, on Twitter, they try to pump it and say, hey, look, there's never been more people with more belief in Bitcoin than ever. Look at all these wallets with 0.01 Bitcoin. Yes, we're all a team. We're all laser hands. We're all diamond eyes, whatever it is. Laser eyes, diamond hands. But the reality is, that's the scary thing. The scary thing is when it's all getting dumped on the retail investors. But the great news about the schematic of distribution in this style is that the pain is just about done. And if I was seeing this for the first time, I'd be thinking, and I say this every time we pull it up and we talk in depth about it, that if I was watching this for the first time, I'd think this is all pretty silly, crazy stuff that he's talking about right here. If we hadn't been following it for a year and doing it exactly like this, and if it hadn't told us that the bottom would hold in May, June, and July, and that the top would come in October and November, yeah, but it did. It was flawless for Bitcoin, let alone the simplicity of looking at a 4.236 extension. So why do I do all this, right? Why do I say Bitcoin's the top is in and, boom, it's over for Bitcoin, right? Especially in a moment like right now, it's $33,000. There's so much fear out there in the market. And it's because in these situations, the price doesn't continue collapsing. If the schematic continues to follow itself, if the structure continues to follow itself, we're in the depths of despair right now. We're in capitulation right now. We're in the worst of it right now. This is all a guessing game, and we're all using our tools. We're all using the things that we have access to try to make the best guess that we can. I've been following that Bitcoin's top was coming in for nearly a year at this point. I sold my Bitcoin almost a year ago. It was in early February. It was right after Elon Musk announced that Tesla had been buying Bitcoin. I sold my Bitcoin between $45,000 to $58,000. Still just a patient waiting game on this altcoin market to play out. But we're now reaching that phase of Bitcoin's expectations of a fall, confirmation of a bear market. If you don't think Bitcoin's in a bear market, I don't know what information you're looking at. We've seen the 4.236 extension get massively rejected. We've seen the 50-week moving average get broken through. There are no circumstances in bull runs where the 50-week moving average gets broken unless Bitcoin's in a bear market. And then if we look at Bitcoin on the monthly time frame, we clearly see the massive bearish divergence in Bitcoin, and we see the rollover of the MACD on the monthly time frame. So from a monthly perspective, it is just getting started for Bitcoin. But I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, dang it, blockchain backer. I'm supposed to be tuning in here for a pick me up and for some reassurance, man. What are you doing? And, right, prices are really hard down to the downside. I'm sure that's not the most optimistic thing people want to hear. But the reality is, right, I've thought that Bitcoin's been going into a bear market for a long time. But the really good news is of where we're at right now, right? This was all part of that bigger structure. And now we all wait for a reversal to come in. And that this is the general structure that I'm looking for. And this is what I've been following for over a year at this point, at least communicating when I was selling my Bitcoin, expecting a new all-time high. And the way you can kind of interpret this whole fractal and this whole structure of a reversal and how these things play out is we can go back here and we can look at this and say, hey, this is like back in March and April and May. This is back in May, June, and July. Here is October and November, and here you are in December and January. And notice how it sets a brand new all-time high, pulls below the all-time high, gives a final excess, and then a massive fall. This is typical topping structure. Then what do you get followed after that? A, B, C, long-term collapse. This is just technical analysis. Over the course of the last several months, I've had so many people posture against me. I have had so many negative things written about me and said about me. And I'm not here to be the bad guy. I've always said that. I'm not here to be nefarious. I'm not here to be the bad guy for everybody to throw stones at. I'm just trying to show you the charts. The thing that people are going to focus on that who are long-term Bitcoin bulls is going to be the fact that I drew this arrow over here that Bitcoin's going to collapse much further later down the road. But that's your personal belief. That's fine. But the thing I'm looking for is this moment that we're in right now for Bitcoin. All the stuff of me saying I think Bitcoin's going to go into a bear market, I think the top's coming in, watch out. All of it was for this. All of it was for this big fall to happen right in here and for the typical structure to occur where we have an ABC that comes out of that. Now, does this whole structure look familiar to you at all? I'll give you a second to think about it. Have you seen this anywhere before? Because you have in this video right back over here. That is this thing flipped completely upside down. That's this comparison we keep making with the inverted price chart of Bitcoin, what you're used to seeing looking like this versus what these structures typically look like. And so essentially we've taken this and we've shifted it. And why is that important? It's because that's what reversals typically look like for Bitcoin. When we head back to 2017, and this is one that we've been focusing on a lot, and it's fallen deeper than what this one did back in here. It's the same thing, guys. It's the big rise up, the big fall. You barely set a new high, you pull back, pull up, and then you have a big fall, and then you go into retracement. This one is slightly different as this one was still for a bullish market, but I do not believe this time it is a bullish market. I do believe this time is a big reversal because of what we saw over there on the monthly time frame charts, what we saw for the 4.236 extensions, and that this is the most likely thing in my book. In addition, it also sets up an ABC structure for a retracement. What do we know about ABC retracements for Bitcoin after Bitcoin puts in its top? We know that when Bitcoin began its collapse in 2017, and as it went in for its ABC retracement, that is when the altcoin market had a big run. So altcoin market's getting punished right now. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't look pretty out there at all. But I go into it with the mindset of what I've been watching for this market for quite a while, and that we're in a phase like this right in here, and that I've brought it up many times, a long and grueling retrace that will last for a long time. And the thing that typically has to happen is people have to not believe that it's going to do anything. Typically, the whole retrace up, that's what happens. And that's what we saw back in May and June and July, right? People did not believe anything was going to happen. Once it got through the 702 retracement, after El Salvador Day, you had the big knockback, but then once it broke through it, everybody believed it and everybody was good to go. I think we'll see something similar to that in here, right? Right now, there's a lot of pain. You can kind of imagine what this would all look like in this circumstance right in here if the price is pulled up and then fell over on itself. We'd see gloom and doom fractals all over the place because this wouldn't look pretty. Let's put this there. Let me take everything off the screen really quick. Let's put this on here and put it like that. Is that going to be pretty? No, not at all. But this is what these things typically do. And so for those who all saw me being, bearish on Bitcoin for such a long time, screaming that the sky was falling, and Bitcoin was in the 60,000s, this was all my big vision for Bitcoin. And while it's like, dang, man, those altcoins, they don't look very good. The reality is, until this comes in, until we see a retracement come in for Bitcoin in here, I don't think we can count those altcoins out just yet because every Bitcoin top has had a massive alt season in it that exceeded beyond Bitcoin's ability to break any higher. And while I did not anticipate that these altcoins would go down as low as they've gone, Bitcoin structure has done precisely what it does before heading into an ABC correction. And that is the moment where the altcoins shined in 2018. So when we're in moments like these, like I talked about, there's two things that I typically do. I either close my eyes and don't look at it, or I bust out my bank card and start going to town because mathematics and percentages mean everything to me. And if this market's going to reverse, I'm personally a believer of buy low and sell high. And I don't run with the crowd who buys high in euphoria and sells low in terror. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. It's not investment advice, but I always share with you guys what I do, right? And the reality is, we've finally gotten here. Bottoms are usually a process. I know everybody wants to say to themselves, hey, I'm going to buy the bottom and then I want the price to reverse the next day. Typically doesn't work like that, especially not in this market that we're in right now. Every major reversal seems to be going pretty slow compared to 2017 when we would have our reversals, they would happen fast. It has not been like that during any phase of all of this. Even in 2020, when we had the C19 sell off, that seems like it was pretty fast, but it wasn't that fast. Yeah, it wicked down really hard, but we stood in here for quite a while, and there was enough time in the market for everybody to be really afraid. And then each one of these were all just very rolling styles that we had until we finally got up here. And even this was a roll, a roll, a roll. So, I go into it with that mindset too, that we all want V bottoms. We all want to buy the bottom, and then we want it to reverse immediately. But we don't have that type of market condition that appears to be going on during this bull run. Everything happens a little bit slower, it appears. And bottoms are a process to form. But we've gotten there. And we'll add another check mark for the inverse price chart, giving us clear signal to the market. Pretty crazy that it works, but somehow it does. And for me, I just hang tight knowing that this was the anticipation of the market for Bitcoin. And one thing that typically happens, and we'll see if it ends up playing out this way or not, but in history, from being in this market for such a long time and going through a lot of these big corrections before, when the bottom is in, you actually kind of know it from the altcoin market. You see the altcoins, just random altcoins firing up 20, 30, 40, 50%. You've noticed we haven't seen any of that type of stuff happen at all throughout the last couple of months. Typically, the marking of the bottom was indicated by the altcoins really firing up. And we'll see what people typically do, right? It'll fire up 50% and then people will buy it, right? But right now, it's just a waiting point to get to that phase, guys. So if you followed for a long time, if you know my perspective on Bitcoin has been that Bitcoin's going into a bear market that was not based on just being, a mean person, right? It's based on structures and what was happening. And this is the first initial knockback from the all-time high. And this is the thing that we usually see in reversals is that an ABC comes out. We've gotten super deep in here. As the inverse price charts showed us, that's what typically happens. And now we wait. So this whole thing that has played out for Bitcoin over the course of the last year has been a very normal topping structure. This pullback that we're experiencing for Bitcoin right now is a very normal thing to happen after a top gets put in. The next phase that is very normal is an ABC correction back to retracement levels, which would be in the mid 50,000s. So that's the moment we're all waiting for. We know in 2018, the shining moment of the cryptocurrency market was the altcoin market during that time. Now it's just about patiently getting through this phase that we're in right now and then assessing what the market does as Bitcoin retraces. So, fingers crossed that moment can come sometime soon. Usually, a really good sign of that is if we see some altcoins start popping up 30, 20, big percentages, not your little 5, 6, 7%, but every time I've seen these things happen, you see big numbers get posted up there 20, 30, 40, 50%. So, I have been poking around Twitter to see what's going on out there because the logical thing I would think is, look, if everybody thinks we're just going to go into an ABC correction in here, why would anybody buy Bitcoin, right? Even in the poll that I ran over here on Twitter, we can see the sentiment has completely flipped for retail investors on what they believe. I ran a poll here on January 21st. I also ran the exact same poll back on November 14th. What comes next? On November 14th, we could see that 64.4% of people believed that Bitcoin was going to $100,000 and only 35.6% of people believed the price was going to $20,000. Now, 32.8% believe Bitcoin's going to $100,000 and 67.2% of people believe that it's going to $20,000. And I ran through all those stats right in here. Both polls received 34,000 responses, and the obvious thing is that sentiment has flipped. If the general consensus of the market is that it's going to collapse, why would anybody be buying it or care if Bitcoin gets back into the 50s? Everybody's going to sell it, right? And I've been poking around, looking around at the typical up-only suspects for Bitcoin. They've come up with all the different things to shill out there of that we're still skyrocketing. So there will still be the belief out there that the prices will still skyrocket for Bitcoin, even when we go into an ABC retrace correction. So you do need that. But I will stay true to myself in that, I expected that Bitcoin was heading into a bear market. This is what normally happens in here, and we head into an ABC correction. And as we get back to that 702 retracement area, this is typically where retail investors start really doubting that it's actually bearish and they start getting really, really bullish. So I will stay consistent with that theme that this is what I think is happening with Bitcoin even as it goes into a retracement. But what all of my focus is, and where I am willing to be a moon boy, is for the altcoin market, because that's the conditions that we've seen happen before. If we had not seen these conditions before, I think that would just be being a moon boy for the sake of being a moon boy. And I think that's what a lot of the Bitcoin stuff is out there. But for the altcoin market, we have seen this condition before. We have seen Bitcoin get knocked back from its all-time high with a violent knockback, go back into an ABC correction, and the altcoins have the most glorious time in history. So I still do remain optimistic that that is around the corner. And for those who are curious of what my mindset has always been on being bearish on Bitcoin, is that this is how it typically plays out. Now, my long-term perspective of Bitcoin is bearish. So we're talking multi-years, bearish for Bitcoin. Short-term, bullish, but not for a new all-time high. So I'm bullish on Bitcoin. It's been a little while since I've said that, but merely for a retrace. And I'm more optimistic and moon boyish for the altcoin market. And now we're just waiting for that confirmation to come in where we see those altcoins really pop. So I'm just going to remain patient like I do, knowing that Bitcoin has played out from the inverse perspective exactly like it typically does. And that the end can't be too far away. But all right, guys, I hope that we turned that into positive optimism there by the end. I hope that you're doing well. I know these times are always tough to get through, but we'll get through them together. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up as we start off the new week. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do, as always, of course, you could check out bcbacker.com for additional content on here. It's a course that I put together where I deep dive into the previous Bitcoin bull runs, the previous altcoin market cycles, tying them all together. I show you how they've worked in the past, talk about my exit plans in here, and I teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Talk about mathematics and percentages and why those are so important to me. And the most recent market update in there was back on December 31st. And you can check out all of this educational content over here on bcbacker.com. You can follow me over here on Twitter at bcbacker. And I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick me up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.